patriotism, faith, national unity, education, fiscal responsibility, civility, the values that define America. Fascinating stories and talks from America-loving patriots dedicated to preserving freedom, opportunity, and justice. Welcome to the Friends and Fellow Citizens podcast. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 54 and the first anniversary of the Friends and Fellow Citizens podcast. I am so excited to have you with us today. This is a really historic day and week for us. We're celebrating our one-year anniversary on August 29th, 2021. Our first day was actually on the 30th, but we are celebrating it today because it's a Monday. But I'm very, very grateful to all of you who have supported me, whether it's from day one or just from last week's episode. You all play a very integral part in what this show is all about. Every time I hit that record button or set up an episode for release on Monday, I think about all of you. I think about the reason why we are here today. We are all here every single week because we care about our nation. We care about the state of the world. We care about the values that the founders left us. We also care about the values and the successes that previous generations have built for us. And while no one is perfect, and that everyone has had successes and transgressions, we all strive to do better. That's why this show is what it is. Named after the first words of Washington's farewell address in 1796, this podcast really has not only impacted myself, but I think it's really changed the way many people view our conversations today. And I'm really, really grateful for all of you, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart. Because this 1 year has been a phenomenal foundation. And I cannot wait for all the announcements that we'll be making in the next year and for years to come. All the other episodes that are just waiting out there for us to record and to provide to all of you, the audience. There is so much more out there, and we are marking this year to really honor all the successes and all the things that we've done together for year one. And all of these experiences and stories will carry through to the future episodes that lie ahead. Before we get to our main part of our episode today, I think it's important for all of you to hear from two of the most amazing mentors and family members whom I love so much. It is because of their love that this is even possible. Now I'd like to invite and welcome my parents, my mother, Dr. Sally Tylowski, and my father, Captain Greg Tylowski, to share a few words with us.
Sherman, congratulations. 1 year. I know you always like to talk, and you have created an opportunity for yourself to talk. You have complete success on this regards. So I still remember when you were 4 years old, one of my friends who was a linguistic therapist, because you couldn't speak the whole sentence. So she suggested me that to take you to a specialist to correct your speaking technique. I rejected because I always know you are just trying to think what you're going to say, especially when you're learning 3 languages at 4 years old. So I'm so proud of you. As your mom, I agree with you, whatever you say, because I'm your biggest fan. Thank you, Sherman, for making me a proud mom. Bye.
Hello, everyone. If you were to tell me, back when I was 35, that in 24 years, my future son would be dedicating his knowledge, energies, talents, and passion to create a space in which to honor our country's founding father, I would tell you that I would be among the most grateful of men. And I am. Thank you, Sherman. I am proud of you.
Well, thank you, Mom and Dad, for a wonderful message from each of you. I'll never forget that moment when I brought up the idea of starting this podcast. And I know that this has been an experience like no other, an experience that has taught me a lot. I believe I've grown a lot since I first started, and I just can't wait to release all those amazing episodes for you both to listen every week. And I know that you both continue to listen to the show. You give amazing feedback, and I could not have grown this much if it wasn't for your love and for your selflessness, your care. I will always remember the sacrifices that you have made and you continue to make for myself and for my livelihood. So thank you, Mom and Dad. Now, let's begin our first part of the program. Because this week is a special occasion on Friends and Fellow Citizens, I decided that it would be best to first start off by thanking those who make the interview episodes possible. It is because of the amazing guests, as well as their time and energy, that we are able to listen to them and to hear what they have to say about what they're doing to uphold the values of Washington's farewell address, but in large part to also make our country a better place than it was before. I hope you will enjoy the following highlights that I put together to present just a snippet of what we've been able to have for our interview episodes this past year.
My grandparents always believed that the future would be so much better. And a point they always make is that they endured what they went through with the tenacity and spirit. And their entire belief was that they are American and that they believed in their country and that what they were going through was going to build a better future for their children and their children's children.
The number of lives saved by these women who stepped up, contributed to national security, and even prior to there being this sort of vacuum in the field where they needed the women, they were already pioneers, and the men going to war gave them the opportunity to show that they were qualified and that they had these special skills to help the U.S. and the Allies win the war.
I really love my man Thomas Jefferson. The guy was a statesman, diplomat, lawyer, architect. The guy was a lot of things, And I really think what I liked about him is he was a huge proponent of, democracy, republicanism, and not in the party sense, but and individual rights. I think that it's like kind of his core. He's a solid person, to look up to.
It's about knowing that just because you think your opinion is right does not mean someone else's opinion is wrong. And if we really want to become the United States of America, that's something we need to learn. And a lot of our political officials and those in elected office need to know that we need to grow by listening to other people's points of view.
I never want a girl to feel like she can't achieve a career goal that she wants to. Because here in America, it is the best place and the best time to be a woman, and you can do anything that you set your mind to. You just need the right people around you supporting you to get there.
I would say that James Madison is my favorite founding father and the most relevant. Madison really pushed for checks and balances. And checks and balances are the single most important factors I miss in European democracies.
When you say something, mean it. If you mean what you say and say what you mean, you'll be fine. A lot of teachers think that kids will buy in if they like you. The aim is not to be liked. The aim is to be respected. Getting that respect, because kids want structure, and it's cruel to not give that to them.
Let's get them together. Let's see if we can get co-chairs. And we wanted this to be as bipartisan as we could get it. We didn't want this to be a Democratic effort or a Republican effort solely. We wanted this to be as bipartisan as we could. So we have two Republicans, two Democrats, which is great that they were able to come together.
Let's start our discussions, particularly our political discussions, not with this is the result I want or this is what my party wants, but with what is the issue we're trying to solve and what is the common purpose that we have with it.
In North Korea, if you leave, up to 3 generations of your family can be punished. It's an unfortunate existence. It's really sad. I'm trying hard not to tear up just talking about it. But I think it's something we need to understand. It's tough for North Koreans in North Korea and to get out, but once they get out, it's even hard for them outside.
Education is crucial, and I think it speaks volumes today when we think about the implications of moving from even AI technology or even beyond that, just the ideas of how do we reshape our cities into designing them to be sustainable and equitable and environmentally enriching.
I did a digital speaker series last year highlighting quite a few soldiers and their stories about it, because it's very severe for them to come home and not talk about it at all. It's not only therapeutic for them, it's therapeutic for their families so that they can understand what they went through, and then also helps them educate children and young adults who are watching so they can make an informed decision about whether or not joining the military is right for them.
And so my advice always to young women is to do something, even if you're second guessing yourself, even if you're scared, because like I said, half the battle is really just showing up and being able to care about your community enough to fight for people whose voices have not been sufficiently heard.
I'm trying, I have a couple daughters, and I'm trying to raise them in a way where they're at least encountering new things regularly. And I feel like that's where you get more empathy. And empathy is at the root here. Like, if we don't have empathy, then you don't have anything else. There's so many things that the government focuses on, and a lot of things take the back seat, right? But I think that if you could put space further to the front seat, I think a lot of people are going to start to see how it can play into things like patriotism.
I always encourage students, you don't have to stop learning after you graduate. It's always a good thing to keep learning and to ask interesting, important questions. And part of what a good education should give you are the tools that you need to continue to inquire in your life and to be able to engage in research and to continue to ask interesting questions and to continue to explore those interesting topics.
You don't have to have the talents of your favorite athlete. You don't have to have the singing abilities of Beyonce or your favorite singer. All you have to do is be kind, because kindness is the first step to doing all of those bigger and better things. Being kind is the best thing that you can do every day. It makes other people smile. It makes you smile. And what's bad about being happy? There's nothing bad about being happy.
I just find law so fascinating, and what I love about, America specifically is that if you don't like a law or if you don't agree with it, that's what's so great about our system is you can work your way up the system to change that law. So I would have to say that is what I find the most interesting and intriguing about our government and our legal system in America.
How can we help others? And I think that is really what patriotism is all about, and we cannot claim to be a patriot or claim to have pride in our nation if we are not actively working to make it a better place for everybody in the nation. We cannot be selfish if we're going to be patriots.
So within the college setting, building into courses opportunities for students to practice active listening. It doesn't have to be political all the time. It can just be, within the context of their studies, whether it be biology, physics, whatever it might be. I mean, the sciences can get pretty heated just on their own, even without politics involved. But I think that's a big thing, is just, that needs to be built into the curriculum for sure.
I don't even call myself African American. I'm a black guy. I'm an American who's black. I actually like black dude better. Why? Because I am an American of African descent. But I'm an American because I'm somebody that's willing to die for this country regardless of what you look like. And by the way, 14 of my West Point classmates that died, they were all white. But they didn't die for white people or black people or Hispanic people or Asian. They died for Americans.
To everyone listening, I would say to stay true to your values and your core beliefs. Don't join the bandwagon. Don't give in to peer pressure. Always stand firmly by what you believe in. And when there's an opportunity, take it, if you can. Because it's important to gain experience and to always seek knowledge and protect future generations of America.
And there you have it, a compilation of some of the highlights that we've been able to enjoy over the past year. I once again am just so grateful for the amazing guests that we've had this past year, and look forward to the guests who are going to be able to come onto the show in the future. They really mean so much to the fabric of the show, and I am just so thankful for what they've been able to do and the time and faith that they've given to friends and fellow citizens. And now I want to present our final part of our episode today. I recorded a roundtable discussion with the 3 original guests who came onto this show, recorded before the show was even launched on August 31st, 2020. These 3 guys are Pat Yaro, Denzel Johnson, and Christian Piñeiro. They mean so much to me. They had so much confidence in myself, but more importantly in the show, and they want to do whatever they can to support our endeavors, and it's just such an honor to have them back on to celebrate Friends and Fellow Citizens' 1-year anniversary. Take a listen. I hope you enjoy. All right, well, let's get right into it. I'm going to welcome our 3 guests. We have Denzel Johnson, Pat Yaro, and Christian Piñeiro, 3 amazing guys who are with us today. I'm going to start with Denzel, and he's going to briefly introduce himself to all of us.
Hey, how you doing, Sherman? Thank you for having me on the show. Once again, it's good to be here. I can't believe it's already been a year since we started this. I remember us talking about this podcast on the way home from school one day, and just seeing the podcast come to fruition is really an amazing blessing to see. So as far as my background, as far as what I've been doing this last year since the start of the podcast, so as you know, we graduated in May from the Bush School, and shortly after that, I was searching for jobs and with a lot of things falling through because of the pandemic. I had been working for the U.S. Agency for International Development for a few months, supporting their international development mission as a program analyst. But within the at the end of Christmas, starting in January, I transitioned to Omaha, Nebraska, where I am a DoD staff officer at the U.S. Strategic Command, supporting the Admiral's 24/7 no-fail nuclear deterrence mission. Really enjoying it, doing a lot of the helping, partnering alongside with the exercise planning aspect. So I've been really enjoying the mission and vision of a STRATCOM and how, the importance of our NC2 mission here.
Hello, Sherman. I'm thrilled to be back on Friends and Fellow Citizens. I can't believe it. It's been a year. I remember I was still in Texas when we recorded my first episode with you. Last fall, I moved back to Europe. I work for a Swiss company. I still work for Texas A&M University remotely. I also started my own blog, yaropolitics.blog. And also I'm putting together my PhD application. The last 12 months have been crazy. The COVID pandemic, the economic problems, the politics, the election, the inauguration of the new president, and everything that has been going on for the last 12 months gave us so much inspiration to think, to talk. So I think your podcast, Friends and Fellow Citizens, is a great opportunity for people to share their views on our world, on our ideas, on our problems. So I want to congratulate you for the first year of your podcast, and I welcome to the great conversation we're going to have tonight.
Thanks, Sherman. It's always an honor to be back and not only just to talk to you again, but in this reunion setting as we celebrate your 1 year, which is such a great feat. You should be very proud of yourself. I mean, not a lot of people can have the really the ability to really hone in on making what a podcast is in terms of the content and the outreach piece. And you've done an immaculate job, and I'm happy to have been one of the many stewards of to be part of the show to do that. It's also great to catch up with Denzel and Pat again. I know we haven't seen each other in a long time, so it's kind of this nice Bush School reunion going on. But so yeah, super excited, super proud. When we first spoke, I was working at a nonprofit organization called the Eno Center for Transportation in DC, doing a lot of research analysis about kind of trends about transportation. About 3 or 4 months ago, I had the opportunity to transition into local government. So now I work at the District Department of Transportation in DC. So it's the local level in the city as a community engagement specialist for the Office of the Director. So I work closely with the agency heads at DDOT. I do a lot of correlations with the MOKers, which is the Mayor's Office of Community Relations for Mayor Bowser. And we do a lot of outreach to make sure the residents of DC know what DDOT's policies are in terms of transportation, building a sustainable city, making sure we can elevate the mayor's vision on what transportation means. And so it's great to be surrounded by a lot of local government public servants that I'm happy that the Bush School was able to introduce me to, as well as become a filter with everyone else here as well. So it's great to be back.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your kind words. And obviously, as like I mentioned earlier, you were a big part of this show. I mean, when I started, I thought about the model, definitely wanted to have interview shows. You obviously cannot have interview shows without other people. And you three were honestly the first ones whom I reached out to, because I really felt like, it's an affinity. You meet someone and you just feel, for whatever reason, that spark and that connection. And that really has boosted this show a lot. It's because of the connections that we've made. Not to mention all the other guests that we've had on the show, for people from all different backgrounds. And we've had a lot of people who really have built incredible lives of public service. And we'll definitely get into the Bush School a little bit more later on. But I want to now go back a little bit to, say, late spring, right around the time when COVID happened and when we got into the lockdown phase. I want to start with Denzel again, because I want to go back to a conversation that we had, and we had a conversation on the way back to school. I also remember that conversation when we drove an hour. We used to drive an hour plus to the nearest Costco because we were huge Costco fanatics, and it was that trip I remember when we were floating this idea of a podcast. Denzel, you want to share a little about what did you think of the idea of the podcast when we first spoke? And number two, how did you react when I reached out to you? I said, "Hey, Denzel, it's really happening, man. We're really doing this, and I want you to be one of the first guests on the show."
Yeah, Sherman. As we're preparing to meet up today, and considering this 1 year anniversary of Friends and Fellow Citizens, I'm just blown away, because I remember we've had obviously several conversations after graduation, and we're still in Texas over the summer, just talking about what your plans are for the podcast and what kind of content you would want. And even I remember you sent me and some of our friends your logo ideas. So that was amazing. I mean, I mean, obviously, I always believed in you and knew that you would do a great job. And it's just amazing to see taking a small idea and seeing it come to fruition. And yeah, I think that always came up. I mean, at some point in our conversations, over the summer, when we were both still in Texas, and I think even on that one time we went to Denny's at 4 a.m. Man, I mean, like,
Yeah.
we were talking about it and just kind of talking about like what the way forward is. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what you do in the years to come, right? Because this is year one, but just imagine what the impact that this podcast, the impact and influence that this podcast can and will have in say 2-3 years down the line, right? So keep up the good work.
Absolutely, and I really appreciate you saying that. I will say the productivity level of 4 a.m. at Denny's. Let me tell you, don't underestimate that, because you're you own the Denny's restaurant. You're the only ones there. You get your orders. You don't need to worry about waiting for the waiter or waitress, and you get classic Americana. So Pat and Yara, Pat, Yara, and Christian, you guys have a challenge. You guys got prove to me that you're Denny's quality. I know that Pat has been at Denny's. I saw Christian at Denny's one time. I was like, oh, these three people, they know exactly what they're doing. Fantastic. Well, I'll turn to you, Pat. So how did you first react when I told you about the idea and also about the topic? We talk a lot about Europe and America because I went to school in London, as you know. And so we frequently talk about transatlantic relations. Just share with us a little bit about what do you think of the episode we did, and also how you reacted when I first pitched this idea to you that our conversations about transatlantic relations can turn into something tangible and something that people can tune into.
Well, Sherman, actually, when you shared your plan to start a podcast, I figured we have to do this because we were talking about these issues, these problems a lot. We didn't go to Denny's a lot, but we used to go to IHOP a lot. And I remember all the conversations we had on British politics, on U.S.-Europe relations. So when I heard the idea that you are finally launching this project, I was thinking that, this is going to be the continuation of the good old IHOP breakfast conversation. But now at least we can share our views or our ideas with other people. So I think it's a great thing. I think your podcast contributes a lot to educate people, to inform people, and to let people share their opinions.
Absolutely. By the way, this episode is not sponsored by IHOP or Denny's. Just for everyone who's clear, okay? This is of classic Americana just seeping into the conversation. It's just only natural that us patriotic Americans are going to be so attached to a couple fixtures of American culture. Pat, if I could ask you real quick, just about going back to the transatlantic relations aspect, how important do you think it is for transatlantic politics to be more mainstream and perhaps more talked about a lot more?
Well, I think transatlantic relations will retain its major role in American foreign policy, even though the Cold War has been over for 30 years. And now we have China as an emerging power, and we have Russia. But I think the relationship between Europe and the United States will define how international politics, are going to be done in our world. Look, whenever we're talking about rising up against China or uniting against Russia or tackling a problem in the Middle East, the cooperation between the nations of Europe and the United States will be vital in the years to come. So I think it's very important to inform and educate people on how the transatlantic relations of these two great continents shaped world history and politics up until this point. And also, it is important to think about what's next. How can we maintain or improve the relations between Europe and America? So I think the episode we did was sort of a reminder to people out there that even though this is like a very patriotic American podcast, but guys, foreign policy and Europe matters.
Amen to that. Fantastic. Christian, now let's turn to you, man. And how did you react when I reached out to you? And I knew you were a transportation guy. I know this is a really important issue, especially when we've got the infrastructure bill pending in Congress. Just share us about kind of how you reacted, and just also give us a bit of a preview about your episode and why it matters to American politics and the world we're living in today.
Yeah, definitely, Sherman. Well, first, I'm not as cool as Pat and Denzel. We did not have any shared Denny's or IHOP conversations as often, but it was. I will say, I was very excited for you. I think you first mentioned it. I think it was June of last year. You sent me a Facebook message. Mind you, Sherman and I, we kind of go way back. We were the only two Yankee fans at the Bush School, so very rare that we got to connect on our shared love for New York in that regard. But I remember you sent me a Facebook message, a month right after we all graduated, and you was kind of breaking down hey, this I thought I had for a podcast. I would love for you to be a part of it. It's going to be, sharing the American value. I love the symbolism you had with the Washington's kind of principles attached to that. When I finished reading that, I was like, the fact that he wants me on this show, like, I was so humbled and very, very surprised, because I was just so happy for you, man. And I think as we all kind of are young professionals kind of going into, our trajectory of public service, I think I think Pat hit this on the head when he mentioned, there's no greater opportunity you have with this podcast, and to really shape the conversations that are very important, but some of the ones that not a lot of people want to have. It's one of those kind of, dicey kind of, let's wait for Thanksgiving dinner, kind of break down the politics type of conversations, but you really were able to break down these barriers. And so when you reached out to me, specifically for transportation content, I was super ecstatic, and I was definitely one of your top fans, to say the least. But it's crazy now. We move over, and we're in August now, and it's over a year since you reached out. And I've been very adamant on watching all those episodes. You had some extraordinary people on. And I can't wait for phase 2. And, I think you're going to crank it up a bit, because right now people know who Sherman Tylowski is. And so I can't wait to what's going to happen in the next few months and years ahead.
Appreciate it, man. I really do. And I want to kind of ask you now, guys, I'll go to Pat first and this time. But what are your thoughts about some of the guest episodes and the other episodes we've had already? 54 episodes in, I mean, we don't have time to talk through every single one of them, obviously. But what are your kind of impressions about, the kinds of people we've had on? Is there anything that stands out to you as we have multiple conversations, everything from China to more representation for women in politics, or if it's talking about cyber, anything that in particular that you find were your favorites, or anything that stood out to you over this past year?
Yeah, sure. And so the one thing that stands out is the diversity of the guests and the episodes you had. Diversity in terms of the type of people you invited to be on your show. We had like well-established people from the academia. We had young graduates. We had people with foreign background, like myself. We had people who do not pursue like a typical academic career in terms of studying politics or studying international relations or constitutional law, but people who pursue a career in another field, but yet their voices matter. And I think your podcast has been great to put together different types of voices, different types of ideas from different people. I think this is one of the most important things your podcast managed to achieve in the last 12 months.
Thank you so much, Pat. And I really think the diversity of guests, that's one of the things that we're aiming for, diversity of voices and having multiple sides of different issues. I will tell you, there's some things that I agree and disagree with our guests, and that's okay. They'll disagree with me on certain things. That's okay. This is the purpose of civil dialogue. On the civility point, I like to ask all three of you, because we have 6 principles, obviously, for Washington's farewell address. From my personal experience and from what I've seen, we've seen more guests than ever before mentioning civility as their top principle, or a principle that they want to explore more and want to promote. So, Denzel, if I could ask you, what is your view about the state of civility? What do you think has been going wrong, and what would be something that you would do to encourage more people to promote civility and achieve civility in our political discourse?
Well, the way I kind of relate with civility and how I understand it is, I like to go back to my roots. I'm from Hawaii. I was raised there, and it really is in line with what I always talk about, the aloha spirit, right? Really kind of living that, seeking peace and just unity with people. And I think that one of the biggest issues I see in terms of civility is just, it kind of just shows how we as human beings are flawed, in that no matter what it is, like it's so easy for us to divide ourselves. It's always an us versus them thing. You take, like, last year, it was the election. It's like, hey, I vote for this person, or you vote for that person. I hate you, or I don't like you. And now it's vaccine or no vaccine, or vaccine mandate or no vaccine mandate. It's like a us versus them thing. And of course, you see it all across society and media and different discussions. I think it's just kind of the way that we, as human beings, and I guess in the U.S., position ourselves in a manner that's particularly divisive. And in terms of how to do that better, I think it really comes down to just having conversation. And I know that sounds really simplistic, but I mean, I think a lot of I won't say all, all issues can be resolved this way, but I would say like a lot of the issues that we have in terms of different conflict and tension with people can really be resolved, if we're able to kind of sit down and express our opinions and kind of listen. And kind of in line with that, I actually had an experience with that today. I was had a conversation with a friend,
after church, and kind of had a disagreement on something, and I kind of held a lot of tension, and I was able to express my how I saw this situation, and he was able to express his perspective, and it turns out I was the one who was in the wrong. I didn't see the full picture, right? So I'm not saying that's how it's always going to be. I'm not saying that that's how it's always going to turn out. But I think the case in point is that we should be able to sit down and have conversations with each other, no matter what the issue is. I mean no matter what the issue is. Like, it doesn't. I know there's a lot of tense issues, especially now with talking about vaccines, mandates or not. It's like, dude, we should be able to sit down and talk, and I'm all about, striving to, like I said, live aloha and be diplomatic about things. So that's what those are kind of my thoughts and how I recommend that people move forward in pursuing civility.
Well, unfortunately, yes. I think we got a civility problem, both in America and in Europe. I think I want to just acknowledge what my my colleagues, dear colleagues and friends, were speaking about before me. I think what we have to realize is that when it comes to politics or religion or any kind of debate we have, what we have to remind ourselves of is that we are good people and we want to improve things. We want to achieve a certain goal. We want to make our countries or cities or transportation better. And when it comes to political debates and when it comes to lack of civility, first, we have to focus on the similarities we have, not the differences we have. And secondly, we have to understand that the other side, the other group, the other party wants good. Probably we don't agree with their ideas, with their ideology, but we have to keep in mind that they want to do good. They don't want to do bad. They don't want to destroy things, and they don't want to make things worse. They still think, as we think, that there are opportunities to improve, opportunities to solve problems. And I think if we manage to focus on our thoughts on this in the years and decades to come, I think people will be able to go back to the era when there was like kind dialogue and nice conversations about our politics and public affairs. So yes, civility matters, and I think I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that civility will come back eventually in our lifetime.
Definitely. Denzel really kind of spoke on a lot of the pillars when it comes to, understanding people's perspectives, the respect level that, when it comes to politics, is a very heated game. Pat mentioned, the differences between, Europe and America in terms of bridging that divide from an international standpoint. There are a lot of people around the world, who have different opinions. And one of the things I found that's very useful is putting myself into their shoes. I mean, I have my perspectives based on my lived experience, but I'm still one person with kind of this one vision, and I always look from the exterior, how someone else might think differently because they either, lived in a different location, or, maybe they have one parent, because they had a traumatic experience in their life, or they're very passionate about something because it falls into their values, whether it's from a religious standpoint or from a moral standpoint. And so, part of the time is, from civility comes with engaging in conversations. And I feel like the people who don't have the most civility to each other are the ones who are reluctant to have those conversations. And so avenues like this, as we mentioned in the podcast, really bridge people together. And the more we actually may find a lot of similarities between each other than we thought. When we start just actively listening, having emotional intelligence, a lot of things that some people are very heated and quick to, really defend themselves without actually being like, okay, let me pause and hear this other person's perspective and see where they stand. Because at the end of the day, we can't judge each other and blame each other for different reasons. Unless we can say we've lived in their shoes. I'm not a person of level to say that for someone else. And so, engaging in those conversations, and even when things do get kind of dicey, there's that still professionalism that needs to happen. And a lot of times when we talk about politics, when we talk about the political sphere, how we move forward, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Green Party, Libertarians, we're all human beings at the end of the day. And so I want to make sure that people understand that, this dialogue is important, and that moving forward really stems with looking at yourself in the mirror and wondering where you put yourself into this puzzle.
Absolutely. And now we've mentioned a little bit about the way we all met, and I don't think this episode would be complete without some kind of reflection on the Bush School, because that's how all four of us met. That school is where we all got to know each other. If it wasn't for that institution, none of this would be possible, probably. And I want to kind of give an opportunity to Christian first this time, and I'd like you to just reflect a bit about how you got interested in the Bush School and public service in general. I know you might have touched upon a little bit about this in your episode last year, but maybe this time around, maybe a bit of reflection and a tribute maybe to President George H.W. Bush, because ultimately, even when you go further back, when he started that school in 1997, he wanted to create a school of public service. It was his vision, who wanted to create the curriculum and have this community. And I just love to hear your thoughts about the Bush School and how that has affected you, and what the legacy of George H.W. Bush means to you and the United States.
Yeah, no, I think we, and I'll let, of course, my colleagues have their perspectives as well. But I think it's fair to say that we all really resonated with H.W. Bush's, promise and value system of public service. Public service is a noble calling. It's kind of been ingrained in us. It's the staple statement of the Bush School, probably the staple statement of A&M. But for me, I was really drawn to the school in particular. My family has had a history of public service. My dad served 32 years in the Air Force. My mother is a public servant in the medical sphere. She works at a hospital managing a respiratory therapy unit. My brother is an officer in the United States Air Force. So my immediate family, I saw everyone kind of be these people. They knew that there was something greater than themselves. And sometimes that's hard for a lot of people to really put their, perspective in, is, working hard and sacrificing yourself for the benefit of other people. And it kind of draws back into the civility piece too, is making sure we can all really understand what our purpose is. And so, for me, having that very immediate, reckoning of public service from seeing my parents or my brothers or friends and colleagues, I was drawn towards, that was the kind of the impetus of what the Bush School stood for. And so, when I came there, of course, I met you three and a lot of other amazing colleagues who kind of really opened my eyes of really being in a classroom or a capstone group or just kind of meeting people out and about. And we all had this shared love of wanting to serve, and in whatever capacity, whether that's international relations. One of my good friends, Patrick Doucette, he works in a nonprofit, and he's really passionate about nonprofit building and making sure we can bridge those gaps, and then, I work in local government. I have friends who are in the federal government. I have friends who work in, the state level. And so we all really came from different areas and want to kind of pursue different things, but we have the same goal at the end of the day. And it's about sacrificing ourselves to make sure that we can benefit the greater outcome of moving forward. And so, I'm humbled. The Bush School was definitely the place that I call home. I met my friends there, lifelong relationships. And, I've never really had a chance to really appreciate the lasting few months we had with pandemic to really kind of solidify some of those deals. I mean, none of us really had a graduation. But, that's not stopping us from still going back. And luckily being, I know Sherman, you and I are in the DMV metro area, DC, the opening of the Bush School in DC, it's a few blocks away from the White House. Jay Silvera is the president over there. And it's kind of this new site school, but, it's really in the center of where all the heart of the action happens. And so to know that, while we can't physically be in Texas, whether, we're 1,400 miles away, we can at least still kind of have a piece of home towards us for those who live in the area. And so I hope that we can, the Bush School kind of expands more. We have more leverage that way. We can continue to build relationships and really appreciate the school for what it was through a variety of different avenues.
It's very easy to name the most defining event or the most defining week of the Bush School was the week after the 41st president passed away in December 2018. The incredible week we had after the president's death, and the funeral and the memorial and the whole ambience of College Station, Texas, in those few days totally defined my I think my views on public service. It totally cleared my vision that this great man who served his country in his entire life passed away, and people mourn him and people respect him. And the very educational institution he helped to launch, he helped to enable young people to learn government, to learn public service, is now my home. And College Station, Texas is also a very important place in my heart. And I think I can say that 4 or 5 days after the president's passing was the greatest experience of my life, even though it was very sad to see people mourn a great man, a grandfather. But I think George H.W. Bush's vision on public service enabled and helped all of the students of the Bush School to learn and understand what kind of leaders, what kind of public servants America needs.
Absolutely. I remember that week very much, and standing, seeing Union Pacific 4141 pull up to right next to Kyle Field, the beautiful procession carrying off the casket off the train into the limousine, and it really was a very, very touching moment. I really appreciate that, Pat, and I'll never forget also the time when we've heard the news. It was late night on November 30th, and we all spontaneously, past some of our bedtimes. Some people, I guess, can have a sense of what bedtime what was for me at the time, but beyond our bedtimes, we came out in solidarity. We came together at night with candles. It was just beautiful, beautiful ceremony that we had at the Bush School campus. And I thank the upperclassmen. We were first years at the time, and we had second years who really helped put this together. And I'm very, very grateful for that. Denzel, we'll turn a little bit to obviously the Bush School, but first of all, tell us about what the Aloha experience was, because I think a lot of people are very, very curious about how Aloha experience could flourish so well in Texas. So you got to share with us what it is and how we can all feel the Aloha love.
Yeah, thank you, Sherman. I mean, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned, being, kind of being like Mr. Aloha at Texas A&M. I honestly, I get the same kind of image here in Nebraska at Stratcom and in that shirt. So,
he's like a missionary. He's like a Hawaii
yeah,
Aloha
it's crazy.
missionary.
I mean, for me, it's when people ask me, I always wear, I always like to wear like, my, Hawaiian shirts and whatnot out here. And people always ask me like, yeah, or my mask, face mask is Aloha. And people ask me like, what does Aloha mean? And for me, it's really difficult to define in like one sentence, it's Aloha is more of like just an overarching idea, and so in, Hawaii, the Aloha spirit really permeates throughout our society, in terms of, just showing love and compassion and unity and respect for each other. I mean, that is a way of, Hawaiians, right? Native Hawaiians, really showing that love and respect. And I think another thing that kind of is in line with that is Hawaiian people from Hawaii, I would say, and Texans have one thing in common, that they're really proud about where they're from. Like everywhere every time, as you said, like myself, going to the States, we call this, the continent, the mainland, I, of course, want, introduce myself. I always say I'm from Hawaii, and kind of get the same feel when I meet people from Texas, like, yeah, I'm from Texas, But for me, I think I it's one of those things like you don't really appreciate it until you leave. And going to Texas A&M, that was the first time I had left Hawaii per se, as far as living somewhere else. And basically, the way I did it was, one of the things that we do in Hawaii, in terms of, when you go to when you go to work or in any kind of office setting, I mean, business, I guess business casual to us, for us in Hawaii, is wearing Hawaiian shirts, untucked, and slacks. That's business casual. Even that USNOK. I mean, everywhere, like, you don't wear a student tie. If you wear a student, the only reason you wear a student tie is if you're going to court. Like, there's no, you're a lawyer. Like, you're a lawyer. It's the only person that wears a student tie. But yeah, I mean, I remember I wore my Aloha shirt the first day I wore my Aloha shirt at the Bush School. It was like the second day of orientation, and our friend, you remember Abby? She had walked to me. She's like, "It's a really nice shirt." I'm like, "Oh, thank you. Wow, you're like from Hawaii?" I'm like, yeah, I am actually. So I was kind of like, "Wow, yeah, this is kind of cool." Maybe I should, kind of make this my thing. So from then on, that's been my thing. And even out here, working at Stratcom, like I mean, that's, I'm that guy who I wear Aloha shirts, not on Aloha Friday, on every day. So I think it's really just I'm just really trying to spread that positivity, that love, that's from the Aina, from our lands, from Hawaii, out here in Texas, and of course in the Midwest. And it's I can definitely see the impact that has, in terms of, because as you guys kind of know, like I've kind of really like a kind of strong personality, like I have a lot of energy per se. So I really believe that, that's a blessing, in that, I have the ability to impact others through that. So I actually do that at church too. I serve in the parking lot ministry. So, people come into church, they're pulling in. So I'm always like throwing the shakas, and people are like, wow, it's Mr. Aloha, like coming here, well, this guy from Hawaii, and I'm not Hawaiian by blood, but yeah. So yeah, that's really my mission and vision, as I kind of pursue my career, and of course, not just my career, but just my overall growth in life and development. That's really what I want to carry with me, because I believe that everywhere I go, I believe I always feel like I carry the islands on my back. I have of course, it's American flag behind me, but in my room I have my Hawaiian flags and everything. So everywhere I go, I carry that, because that's what formed and made me. So yeah, I strive to live aloha. And we have a saying. There's a brand in Hawaii. It's called Defend Hawaii. It's just like a t-shirt brand, and they have like this license plate frame. And I think on their newest design has like the kind of saying, it says, "Spread aloha, not germs." I think you guys probably might have seen me post that before on Instagram or Facebook. So like that's kind of a thing. Like, spread aloha, not germs, right? Spread that.
Yeah. I like that CDC guidance better, personally.
So there you go.
Real quick, just because I'm in California right now, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and when I listen to baseball games, we always have the Hawaiian Airlines ad, and I just couldn't feel the aloha spirit from those people. They don't have the same spirit as Denzel. I'm sorry, I don't know how many non-Hawaiians are doing these commercials, but man, these people sound like it's like there's some kind of like social experiment or something, and they just kind of, there's a random person off the street. It's like, hey, why don't you pretend that you have a aloha spirit and tell people, about the flowers on the plane? It's like, I've never seen anything like that. I feel like you couldn't get that through customs or for security. But anyway, I think Christian and Pat definitely wanted. I think they should consider taking some Hawaiian lessons from Denzel. Christian, what is your reaction to that? Yay or nay on that?
Always a fan, and I've been to Hawaii once, but it was like when I was a kid, so I don't know if the aloha spirit was fully there. I think I was just kind of upset about walking too much, but definitely I am a supporter of that plan.
Pat, what about you? You up for Hawaiian lessons?
Well, absolutely, Sherman. And Denzel's going to give me like a couple of Hawaiian lessons, and I'm going to give him a couple of Hungarian lessons.
Yeah, there you go. Let's do
it. One last question for all of you. I'll start with I'll start with Pat this time. What is one fun fact about you that none of us, or very few of us, would know about you, but something that you want to put out there for the audience?
I'm a drummer, and I play the drums every single day.
Pat, you never told me that. Otherwise I would have set you up with like some kind of band or something. We could have created a band. I would have taken on the guitar or singing. I mean, my parents don't let me sing because the out of tune thing is a big issue for me. But I did not know that. Well, there you go. Christian, about yourself.
Well, it may be pretty evident with the big map behind me, but I've always been a lover of geography. But it really stemmed when in 5th grade, we lived in Alaska, in Anchorage at the time, and I won my school's geography bee. And so kind of after that experience, I was really sold on the whole kind of regionalism piece, really kind of stemmed my entire, career in love with cities and how that transformed into specifically transportation. And so, you can always kind of find me with a map somewhere. My handle is like Crispy Atlas for Instagram. So, it's kind of been my growing mantra of globes and maps and whatnot. So similar to how Denzel always keeps a Hawaiian flag with him, I probably always have at least some kind of map with me.
If anyone gets lost, we all know whom to contact, because Christian's definitely going to know where we are if we're lost. But that's great, man. Denzel, what's a fun fact about you? I know besides the aloha spirit, there's something else that we don't know about you, because I always feel like I know you guys pretty well, but then you come up with something like, you play drums or you want a geography quiz. I'm like, I didn't know that. Where have I been over the last 3 years or so? But Denzel, about you, man?
Yeah, for me, actually, this is kind of recent, but Stratcom is kind of a small group of guys at Stratcom who kind of put together this barbershop quartet singing team. So I had joined them, and I was like, "Wow, I actually like this. This is pretty cool." So I sing barbershop quartet now. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Kind of a really new development. So.
I'll bet, man. Our next podcast is gonna be, it's just gonna be four of us playing, trying to play as a band. I think all of our lyrics though should be all about like the current issues. We're not gonna do conversational anymore. You can only rap or sing. That's the only way you're gonna be able to voice your opinions.
Pat will be in the back with the drums.
Oh yeah.
We'll do it like Hamilton. It would be a Broadway show.
Yes, that's right. But with Washington this time, we'll
Exactly.
we'll have Washington. I see the moves from Denzel. I think we're all set here. Oh my god! Well, guys, one last thing before we wrap up our roundtable today. I think it was a great conversation. I want to give you guys one last opportunity to provide a message for the audience and what you would say to them, looking back at 1 year and looking forward for the next many years to come. Let's start with Christian this time.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those, I just hope that people continue to understand the value of these conversations and the topics that we discuss. I'm always going to be a fan of returning, and I think, you have a great platform ahead of you. When it comes to the issues that I'm passionate about, when it comes to transportation, urban development, I really want to kind of push a plug on the importance of how that has transcended. There's a lot of parts of this country that don't have access to mobility that we really need to bridge those gaps. Denzel's from Hawaii, as a state that's kind of isolated from the rest of this country, you're really reliant on different ways of getting around. And with the recent, I know, Sherman, you mentioned this in the beginning, with the recent passing of the transportation bill, $1 trillion for surface transportation, 65 of which goes to bandwidth, broadband for internet, several sets go to sustainable transportation. And so when we want to move forward in terms of the toggle moving ahead for transportation, it's a holistic conversation. And so, as we move forward with not only this podcast, but with topics, relative to that atmosphere, we really want to make sure that people can get a hold of things that they not necessarily would, kind of talk about throughout the day. And so I'm humbled and honored to have been a part of those really important conversations that I like, whether it's transportation, but I also know fans of your show are really going to learn a lot from Denzel when it comes to international relations. They're going to learn a heck of a ton on Europe and American relations with Pat, being someone in the force center of Europe as well. And so, getting these different types of perspectives, as someone who's been on the show, I constantly learn each time. And so I'm excited for, like I said, year 2, and really, really just hopeful that we get a larger set of topics that a lot of people can be like, wow, I didn't think about that, but I learned something new. And so, and I think it's all about the education piece, and I'm happy that that's moving in that direction. So again, congrats, Sherman. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it short, Sherman. My message to the audience is keep listening to friends and fellow citizens. Sherman and his guests and colleagues will try to cover most of the important stuff in our world, in our politics, in our public affairs. So I just want to wish you a happy 1-year anniversary again, and good luck.
Yeah, I would just say, once again, thank you, Sherman, for having us, all three of us here today to celebrate your 1-year anniversary of the podcast. In terms of the audience, I would really just encourage everybody to continue listening because Sherman has a big heart for wanting to educate the rest of the world and on a variety of issues, bringing in different perspectives. And then, as you can obviously people notice that it's not just him talking about issues; he's bringing people in and having this conversation. So I would encourage everyone to continue listening as he rolls up to his next season, next series. And on a kind of a separate related note, that if you folks out there have something that you always wanted to pursue or do, even if it's small, I'd really encourage you to pursue it, right? Because like I said, I remember a year ago, Sherman, was kind of talking about his podcast idea. And of course, I know he was a capable man. I was like, yeah, he's definitely going to be able to do it. But to kind of see it come to fruition, right? If you were able to just kind of invest, a little time every day into something that you want to pursue, think about where you'll be, in a year. So just, some encouragement on that front. But once again, as I always say, live aloha.
Well, that was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much to Denzel, Pat, and Christian for joining us today for our 1-year anniversary get-together and celebration. To the audience, thank you so much for tuning in for this entire year. I cannot wait for year 2 to start right after this episode ends. There's so much more content out there. And remember, there's never just one way to support the show. Whether you're a subscriber, whether you're listening to the episodes, or you're a Patreon supporter, I want to especially make a big shout out to our Patreon supporters. They provide us with so much support for us every single month. It's really, really humbling to have such fervent supporters. Stay tuned for more announcements on how you can support the show. I've got some more stuff coming out, not just more content, but more features and more benefits, more in particular for all of our listeners out there. Again, I really appreciate your support this past year. Let's look forward to another great year on Friends and Fellow Citizens. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and remember, a day in America always gets better when we are with our friends and fellow citizens.